I made a commitment to my friend who had such a huge role in my life and his family who have been so important to my life, to my business career and to my personal life, that I would try to help with some of the difficulties they might experience that perhaps he contemplated. And I have done so at no expense to my service to the people of Toronto and to my complete attention to my job, including months during this pandemic where I was at work on the job for people of the city, as they know, every single day, on television, answering their questions, at my desk when appropriate at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, so Mayor John Tory appeared emotional at times as he responded to questions about whether there was a conflict of interest with his role advising the Rogers family. The boardroom drama engulfing Rogers Communications continues to intensify. Now, a BC judge will rule on Edward Rogers' move to overhaul the company's board of directors. The son of the late Ted Rogers asked the BC Supreme Court on Tuesday for a declaration confirming the validity of his board.
His sister, Martha Rogers, meantime, continues to fire off a barrage of tweets after she publicly called for her brother to resign as chair of the family trust. Joining us live to talk more about this bitter dispute and Mayor John Tory's involvement is Michael Binetti, managing partner at AGM Lawyers, and Bryan, Borzykowski, business journalist and founder of All Caps Content. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Bryan, we'll begin with Mayor John Tory. He is an advisor to the Rogers family. He's on the board of advisors. He's compensated for it, too. He's also got another pretty big job, Toronto's mayor. Is there a conflict of interest here?
I mean, you can't write a script this good. But, telecom family, one of the biggest in Canada, ensnares, mayor of the biggest city in Canada. There is a conflict. I mean, whether it's real or perceived, there's a conflict there. He says that he is recusing himself from decisions on Rogers, but there's still, Rogers is a major company in Canada, a major player in Toronto, employs a lot of people in the city, and has business dealings with the city. And even if he recuses himself, who knows? Maybe people that are making the decisions feel like they need to do something because their mayor is involved in the company, has been a longstanding friend of this family. So even if it's not sort of directly conflict, which it may be, who knows what will come out next? It's a perceived conflict, and I think that's a problem for the mayor of Toronto.
Bryan, I have a question for you then, Michael, so I'll start with you. Conflicts of interest, often when we discuss conflicts of interest, it's whether they're real or perceived. This is, I believe, as you're clearly acknowledging here, a perceived conflict of interest. Mayor Tory not sharing the exact amount he's paid to be this advisor. He says he has a fiduciary responsibility, but he also comments on how, these are dear family friends. Does he really have a fiduciary responsibility? I mean, is that not something he could step away from? And should he just say, I'll do this for free because you're dear friends of mine, and I promised the late Ted Rogers that I'd help take care of the family and the family business.
Right. Well, the Toronto Star did report that he makes about $100,000 from this, so it's not chump change. And he doesn't need to do this. He's basically saying that this is his duty. I've been real good friends with Ted and all this stuff, but he is the mayor of Toronto. He doesn't have an obligation to the family. He could have stepped down. I'm sure the family would have understood if he wanted to say, this may not look good, but it's not really an altruistic venture here. He is getting paid. He has a lot of power on that board, and so the way he puts it out there, maybe it's true, maybe he feels that way, but again, the perception isn't, I don't think, that he's just being a good friend.
Bryan, and I should point out, yes, the Toronto Star did report that, but Mayor Tory, when asked today, did not outright acknowledge how much he's being paid. Michael, want to ask you, Rogers has 24,000 or so employees, tens of thousands of shareholders and millions of customers. Who's navigating the ship now? Because both sides say it's them.
Well, if you ask Edward Rogers, he says it's him. He says it should be him. He says as long as he's the chair of the family trust, then he should be able to call the shots. And they call them the Articles of Incorporation for Rogers Communication, seems to say that whoever controls the trust essentially controls the corporation, and that's what he's been doing. So
it is, you would say legally right now, it is Edward Rogers who has control of the company.
Yeah, through the trust. So it's the trust that controls all of those shares, the voting shares, and he's the chair of the trust. And his position is, until you remove me as the chair, then there's really not much people can do about it.
Okay, so Michael, can Edward Rogers replace board members the way he did? What does the law say about that?
So the base proposition in every province has a Companies Law, Corporations Act. For major changes to a corporation, you usually need to call a shareholders meeting. But all of those laws say that you can have articles of incorporation that provide for something else. And in this case, the articles of incorporation for Rogers seem to suggest that they can do something by what's called an ordinary resolution, which is a majority of the voting shareholders can, by resolution, literally a signature, change those board members. And what Edward Rogers said was, I signed a document as the controlling person of the 97.5% of the voting shares to replace the directors. And the articles of Rogers' communication say that I can do that, and that's exactly what I did.
Bryan, this sounds a lot like a shareholder dispute, but at the core of this is really just a family dispute, isn't it?
It is. I mean, these are sisters, brothers. The mom's involved. It's a similar. It's a familiar story. A lot of family businesses who may not be public go through all this drama all the time. It just so happens that in this case, it's they're running one of the largest telecoms in the country, and everyone is familiar with Rogers, so everybody's paying attention. If they weren't a public company, we wouldn't be talking about this, but this is all out in the open because of who they are and how big they are.
Bryan, Martha Rogers has received a lot of attention on Twitter for her honest, I'll say in her interpretation, honest tweets. People are loving it. She suggests that her brother, Edward, has hired the high-stakes crisis communications firm Navigator. As she said today, she finally hired some lawyers, a group of women. Do you think anyone had been advising her, or is, honesty what people just love about her at this point, or what they perceive to be her honest interpretation of things?
It's a good question, and what I'm trying to figure out, too, is I don't exactly know the game here with Martha, other than the fact she is providing a lot of entertainment value and insight into the family that we aren't getting really from the rest of the family, other than through the newspapers. So, there is something there to be said. There's clearly she is upset with her family, and that's why people are watching. What the end game she has here is, I think, remains to be seen. But clearly, she has a lot to say, and people are paying attention.
Okay, Michael, I want to look ahead for a moment here because we know a hearing is scheduled for next Monday in British Columbia. How do you see this playing out?
I think the judge hearing that in BC is going to want to know why it is that the family trust can't replace directors by an ordinary resolution or just a signed document as opposed to a big fancy meeting. I think the judge is going to be interested to know why it is that Edward Rogers himself can't sign that piece of paper. And I think, really the onus is on the faction who would see Edward removed in that role to convince the judge that what he's done is somehow improper.
Michael, can you weigh in the impact this has on this Rogers deal, and really, just with the time we have here, how do you anticipate this ends? How long until this ends? I mean, is this something that could play out for months and months or even years? And
we're talking about the Shaw deal, to be clear.
Yeah, so first the Shaw deal, what's the impact, and just the whole saga? How does it wrap up, and who ends up with control of the company? I mean, is that going to play out for years?
Well, no, I think this issue is going to be decided very quickly. No judge is going to allow this to drag on and on. It seems pretty clear-cut at this point. Whatever issues there are in the trust, I'm sure the trust document is lengthy and provides for manners to replace the chair of that trust. Apparently, it's 2/3. So I think the issue of this governance is going to be short-lived. And I think the deal will progress with Shaw being examined by the Competition Bureau and the other regulators, and that's on the path. That itself could take over a year, and they're a few months into it already. But I don't really see this delaying that significantly or at all.
No matter which way you put it, someone in the Rogers family wins. Someone with the last name Rogers. Okay, thank you so much, Bryan and Michael, for your insight on this. Bryan, as you noted, certainly the Martha Rogers Twitter account is providing lots of entertainment for the people of Toronto. Perhaps, sadly so. This is clearly a family feud as well. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you both.
Thanks.